The dumbest thing I've ever done as a coach. What's up, everybody? Coach Tony from Bombeck Strength. And recently, I've had a lot of time to reflect. We've been coaching at a lot of meets where we've had to travel lately. And those times traveling to and from meets, and especially recently with the holidays, with Thanksgiving, traveling, spending a lot of time in the truck, a lot of time to think, a lot of time to reflect. And I think that's important to do. Whatever your endeavor is as a coach, as a lifter, as a employee, as a business owner, whatever, you got to take time to reflect and think, what have I been doing well? What can I do better? And I was thinking, because I was in the town where I used to go to college, where I first really started training really hard, and my first time ever getting to coach people on a regular basis, I got to thinking about the dumbest thing I've ever done as a coach. And it was really very, very early on in my coaching career, to the point where I wasn't even really getting paid to coach yet. But after I graduated from undergrad, I stayed on at my college for an extra year, did an internship, but also helped out with the college baseball team that I played for. So I was an assistant baseball coach, and I ran all the strength and conditioning for our team. Not because I had any special qualifications, other than the fact that I really like to lift. It was very helpful in my playing days. So the head coach allowed me to train all the guys on the team. The first thing that I did when I got the reins of the training for this baseball team was I wanted to put everybody on Jim Wendler's 5-3-1 program. I actually think that was probably a pretty smart way to go, because it's a very simple program, it's easy to organize, and it's very well progressed. And if you know anything about the 5-3-1 program, is that it's all percentage-based training. There are pros and cons to percentage-based training, and I've spoken about many of the cons of percentage-based training, why I don't use it very much. But the first thing that I did with all these baseball players was, on the very first day that I brought them in, we did 1-rep max testing for the squat, the bench press, and the deadlift, because 5-3-1 relies on a training max. You prescribe all the weights, all the sets, all the reps based on a training max. A training max versus an actual max, what the 5-3-1 program recommends that you do is you take the lifter's 1-rep max and you take 5 to 10% off of that number and use that as your training max. That's a very smart thing to do. It allows you to train with a little bit lighter weights, lets you to start with less and then get more aggressive as the lifter gets stronger, gets more comfortable with technique. But I needed numbers to work with. So on the very first day, I took 20 plus baseball players and had them max out these lifts. As you can imagine, with any sort of sports team, there's a wide array of experience levels and proficiencies with these lifts. We're talking about some people who had never lifted a weight in their lives, some people who had been lifting for a very long time. And across that group of baseball players, there were some people who had literally never done any strength training whatsoever, and some people who had done some strength training but had never done these barbell lifts before. So you can argue about the validity of using the squat, bench, and deadlift while training team sport athletes, specifically baseball players. So probably mistake number one was having all these athletes do the same exercises. Different experience levels, different body types, different positions. Not all of them need to be doing the same exercise. So mistake number one. And then mistake number two was taking all these lifters and making them do the heaviest possible weight they could do for 1 rep on the first day. So dumb. And as you can imagine, it was pretty gross looking. A lot of people doing things with really poor technique, with weights that they just simply weren't ready to do. And I was young, I was inexperienced, but I was gung-ho. I was ready to get these guys in there training hard right away. So I think the dumbest thing I've ever done as a strength coach was pretty much right off the bat, having all these lifters max out. We're talking 14, 15 years ago now. So I've had a lot of time to mature, to improve, to kind of solidify my training philosophy and my training methods. Lucky for me, I was able to get my biggest mistake out of the way early and learn from it. And I think the take-home message here is not necessarily in what the mistake was. Having people max out on day one, a dumb thing to do, regardless of what type of athlete or what type of person that you're training. But the lesson is that you need to take time to reflect. You need to take time to look back at what you've done in the past, what methods you've used, what sources of information you use to kind of shape your philosophy. And you've always got to strive to get better. You've always got to strive to refine your methods, refine your philosophy, and hopefully get better from your mistakes. You're going to make mistakes regardless. That's how you get better. You're going to try things, you're going to fail. You're going to adjust your approach over time. And if you're not adjusting your approach over time, then I don't think you're getting better, because nobody gets it right on the first try, right? Nobody gets it right on the second try, the third try, the 10th try. You're always trying to get a little bit better by avoiding mistakes that you've made in the past, and then also reflecting on what you're doing well and trying to do more of that. So I think over time, I've gotten further away from percentage-based training, a bigger believer in using auto regulation, using ways to pick the weight on the bar based on how the lifter is feeling, and not just telling the lifter exactly what weight to use, but helping them develop the tools and the instincts to be able to choose the weight for themselves. So if I could go back in time 15 years and go back to my college where I did my undergrad and where I played my college baseball, I think if I could do that all over again, I'd start much simpler in terms of exercise selection, and I would realize that the weight on the bar doesn't matter when you're first starting. I did a video about this not that long ago. The weight doesn't matter, it's the effort that matters. And especially with newer lifters, with athletes where the 1RM is not the main thing that we're striving to develop, I think I would go back in time and I would have people lift a lot lighter, put a lot more emphasis on technique, a lot more emphasis on teaching them to choose the weight that's right for the goal that they have. Lucky for me, I made my worst mistake. I did my dumbest thing very early on, and I've continued to learn from that. So I encourage you, if you're a lifter, if you're a coach, make sure that you don't make the same mistake twice. Or if you do make the same mistake twice, that it's continuing to get better over time, and that mistake is a little bit less impactful over time. So make sure you're taking the time to reflect, refine your methods, and learn from your mistakes.